1,200 alien diplomats had gathered to watch humanity die. They filled the grand assembly hall in perfect rows, their bodies ranging from insect-like to gelatinous to forms that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Some breathed methane through tubes. Others floated in anti-gravity fields. A few existed as projected holograms from ships too far away to attend in person. All of them had come to witness the same thing. The end of the human problem, at the center of the vast circular chamber, a single human woman sat alone at a small desk. She was 62 years old, with gray hair pulled back in a simple bun and reading glasses perched on her nose. Her name was Diana Webb, and she was Earth's only representative in galactic politics. She looked like someone's grandmother. That was intentional. High Chancellor Morvax rose from his elevated platform. He was Kalori, a species that resembled a hairless bear crossed with a spider, and he had spent 40 years building the coalition that now surrounded humanity on all sides. His 8 eyes focused on Diana with open contempt. "Human representative," he said. His voice translated through 1,000 devices into 1,000 languages. "The Galactic Concord has reached a decision regarding your species." Diana looked up from the small tablet she had been reading. She smiled politely. "Please continue, Chancellor." Morvax paused. He had expected fear, or at least attention. The human woman's casual attitude annoyed him, but he pressed on. "Earth and its colonies are hereby ordered to dismantle all military vessels within 30 standard days. All human expansion beyond your solar system will cease immediately. Your species will accept protective supervision by a council of elder races who will guide your development until you are deemed civilized enough to participate in galactic society." The hall hummed with approval. Several species clicked or buzzed their agreement. "Should you refuse these terms," Morvax continued, his voice rising, "a combined fleet of 12 major species will reduce your homeworld to ash. Your colonies will be absorbed. Your people will be scattered across the galaxy as a lesson to other dangerous primitives." He sat back, satisfied with his delivery. 40 years of work had led to this moment. The humans would beg. They would bargain. They would cry and plead and eventually submit. Diana Webb set down her tablet. "Is that everything?" she asked. Morvax's eyes blinked in confusion. "You have 72 hours to respond. I suggest you use that time wisely." "Oh, I understood the timeline." Diana stood up slowly, smoothing her simple gray suit. "I just wanted to make sure you were finished speaking." The hall grew quiet. Something was wrong. The humans should be panicking. Their species had no allies, no advanced weapons, no fleet capable of matching even the smallest Concord member. They were outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1. But Diana Webb was smiling. Not a nervous smile, not a fake diplomatic smile. A genuine, warm expression that reached her eyes. "The people of Earth appreciate your concern for our development," she said. Her voice was calm and pleasant, like she was thanking someone for holding a door open. "We will need to discuss this internally before providing our formal response." Admiral Yenis Kora, commander of the combined fleet, leaned forward in his seat. He was Swordhan, a reptilian species known for their military precision. "You understand what refusal means, human? Your planet burned. Your species extinct. There will be no negotiation." Diana turned to face him. Her smile did not waver. "Admiral, I spent 30 years as a hostage negotiator before I entered diplomatic service. I once talked a man out of detonating a bomb in a school full of children. I did it by listening carefully and responding appropriately." She paused. "I'm very good at responding appropriately." She gathered her tablet and her small bag. "If you'll excuse me, I need to make some calls. I'll see you all in 72 hours. And then she walked out. No guards tried to stop her. No one quite knew what to do. The Galactic Concord had just declared war on humanity, and their representative had responded by excusing herself like she was leaving a boring meeting. Prill, a small bird-like creature who served as Diana's assigned translator, hurried after her. "Ambassador Webb," she chirped nervously. That was the High Chancellor. "You cannot simply leave." Diana kept walking. "I didn't simply leave, Prill. I told them I needed to make calls. That's called being polite. They threatened to destroy your world. I heard them. And you smiled." Diana stopped at the entrance to her quarters. She turned to look at Prill with an expression that the small alien could not quite read. "Prill, do you know why humans smile when we're afraid?" The translator shook her feathered head. "We don't," Diana said softly. We smile when we know something others don't. She entered her quarters and closed the door, leaving Prill standing alone in the corridor with a terrible suspicion forming in her mind. The human had not been afraid at all, and for the first time in her life, Prill wondered if the Galactic Concord had made a very serious mistake. 30 years ago, Diana Webb had watched humanity's future nearly end before it began. She had been 22 then, a junior attaché fresh out of university, standing in the back of the room when the first alien vessel made contact. The whole world had celebrated. Humanity was not alone. The stars were full of life, and that life wanted to talk. But the talking had not gone well. The Galactic Concord sent observers to study Earth. They watched human news broadcasts. They read human history books. They analyzed human biology. And when they finished, they declared humanity a Category 7 hazard species, the same classification given to viral plagues and planet-eating organisms. Humans were violent. Humans were territorial. Humans had nearly destroyed their own world multiple times. Worse, humans were biologically resilient. They could survive in almost any environment, eat almost any food, and recover from injuries that would kill most species. The galaxy looked at humanity and saw a disease waiting to spread. Young Diana had watched the senior diplomats beg for reconsideration. She had watched them plead, argue, threaten, and finally accept the harsh terms offered. Humanity would be contained. No advanced technology. No expansion. No trade beyond the most basic necessities. Earth was placed in quarantine. Now, 3 decades later, Diana sat in her quarters and remembered that day clearly. She had made a promise to herself then. Humanity would find another way. A quantum communication link flickered to life, projecting the face of Secretary General Paulo Reyes. He was a tired man with kind eyes, the elected leader of a united Earth that had come together only because the galaxy gave them no choice. "Diana," he said, "I've seen the recording. They're really going to do it, aren't they?" "They believe they are," Diana replied. "Morvax has been building this coalition for 40 years. His entire career depends on humbling humanity. Our fleet can't stop them. Even with everything we've built in secret, we're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Diana nodded. "That's why we're not going to fight them." Reyes stared at her. "Diana, they're going to destroy Earth." "No," she said simply. "They're not." She pulled up a file on her tablet. 30 years of work, carefully hidden from galactic observers. Not weapons programs. Not secret fleets. Something far more powerful. "Paolo, do you know why the Concord fears us so much? Because we're violent primitives from a death world. No, they fear us because we're adaptable. We can live anywhere, eat anything, befriend anyone." Diana smiled. "So that's exactly what we did." The file expanded across her screen. Names, faces, locations. Thousands upon thousands of humans scattered across the galaxy. When they quarantined us, they didn't stop us from sending aid workers to disaster zones. They didn't stop us from volunteering in refugee camps. They didn't stop us from teaching in schools or working in hospitals. Diana's voice grew soft. They thought they were allowing us harmless outlets for our energy. They never realized we were planting seeds. Reyes studied the data. His eyes widened. 40% of galactic refugee programs are run by humans, Diana continued. 60% of disaster response teams have human volunteers. Human doctors have trained medical staff on over 2,000 worlds. Human teachers have educated millions of alien children. "My God," Reyes whispered. "We're everywhere. We're not just everywhere. We're essential. And more importantly, we're loved." Diana stood and walked to her small window. Outside, the stars of the Concord stretched endlessly. The Chancellor thinks he's going to burn Earth. But he's never asked himself a simple question. What happens to all those worlds we've helped when we're gone? Reyes was quiet for a long moment. Protocol handshake. "Yes, you've been planning this since the beginning. Since I was 22 years old, standing in the back of a room, watching my planet get sentenced to slow death." Diana turned to face him. "I needed authorization then, but I was too young, too unknown. Now I'm asking officially. Let me show them what humanity really is." Reyes closed his eyes. He understood what she was proposing. It was not a threat. It was not a bluff. It was simply the truth, revealed at the perfect moment. "You have authorization," he said finally. "Protocol handshake is approved." Diana nodded. "Thank you, Paolo." "Diana." He hesitated. "Are you sure this will work?" She smiled. The same smile she had shown the Chancellor. The same smile she had practiced in the mirror for 30 years, waiting for this moment. The galaxy declared war on us because they thought we were monsters, she said. Tomorrow, I'm going to show them we're family. And you can't declare war on your own family. The communication link closed. Diana Webb sat alone in the darkness, surrounded by the evidence of humanity's greatest secret weapon. 3 decades of kindness, freely given, finally ready to be collected. Tomorrow, she would make the galaxy remember every human doctor who had saved an alien child. Every human teacher who had stayed late to help a struggling student. Every human volunteer who had pulled survivors from rubble without asking what species they were. Tomorrow, she would remind them that humanity had been loving them all along. And then she would ask them a simple question. Do you really want to kill the people who saved your lives? The assembly hall fell silent when Diana Webb walked back in. She moved slowly, deliberately, carrying nothing but a small data crystal in her hand. Her gray suit was the same as yesterday. Her expression was the same as yesterday. That smile still sat on her face like she knew a secret the entire galaxy had missed. High Chancellor Morvax leaned forward in his seat. Human representative. You have your answer. I do. Diana reached the center podium and placed the crystal on the display reader. But first, I'd like to ask a question. You are not in a position to ask questions. Humor me, Chancellor. You've spent 40 years preparing this moment. Surely you can spare a few minutes. Morvax's 8 eyes narrowed, but he nodded. The human woman was about to surrender. He could afford to be generous. Diana turned to face the 1,200 diplomats. How many of you have been to a human hospital? The question hung in the air. Strange murmuring rippled through the crowd. How many of you have eaten food grown using human agricultural techniques? How many of your children were taught by human teachers? How many of your families were pulled from burning buildings by human rescue workers? A small voice spoke up from the delegation of the Fenari, a species that resembled blue-skinned deer. My daughter was saved by human doctors during the Fenari plague. They came when no one else would. And you? Diana pointed to a cluster of stone-like beings. The Morinth. Humans rebuilt your capital city after the earthquake of 2147. Free of charge. More voices joined. The crystalline Pelori spoke of human musicians who had revived their dying art forms. The aquatic Brent has mentioned human engineers who had saved their coral cities from pollution. Species after species admitted connections to humanity that they had never spoken of publicly. Diana let them talk. She let the truth spread through the room like water finding cracks in stone. Then she activated the data crystal that a holographic display bloomed above her head, showing a map of the galaxy. Thousands of tiny lights appeared, scattered across every sector, every region, every corner of known space. Each light represents a human presence, Diana said. Not soldiers, not spies, doctors, teachers, engineers, relief workers, volunteers. She paused. We are on 2,000 worlds. We have saved millions of lives. We have asked for nothing in return. Admiral Cora stood abruptly. This proves nothing. Soft power is not real power. Our fleet will still burn your planet. Will it? Diana turned to the Pelori delegation. Ambassador Thessa Vorn. Your species are empaths. You can read emotional states. Please tell the assembly what you sense from me right now. Thessa Vorn was ancient, her crystalline body clouded with age. She had remained silent throughout the proceedings, but now she rose slowly. I sense no fear, she said, her voice ringing like a bell. No deception. No anger. The human believes completely in what she is saying. She believes she has already won. The room erupted. Morvax slammed his massive fist against his platform. Silence. This is manipulation. Human tricks. No, Diana said calmly. This is the truth. And here is more truth. She changed the display. Now it showed supply chains, trade routes, infrastructure networks. All of them with human fingerprints. If you destroy Earth, you lose 40% of your disaster response capability. You lose 60% of your refugee support systems. You lose the doctors who trained your doctors. You lose the teachers who wrote your textbooks. You lose the engineers who keep your stations running. Diana's voice never rose. She spoke like she was reading a grocery list. You lose everything we built, everything we gave, everything we are. She turned to face Morvax directly. Chancellor, I spent 30 years as a hostage negotiator. The first rule of negotiation is this: never make a threat you cannot afford to carry out. Her smile widened slightly. Can you really afford to lose us? Morvax's fur rippled with agitation. You are bluffing. Your people represent a tiny fraction of galactic civilization. We represent the fraction that shows up when everything goes wrong. We represent the fraction that stays when everyone else leaves. Diana spread her hands. You called us dangerous primitives. You were right about dangerous. But we are not primitive. We are patient. We spent 30 years making ourselves so valuable that you cannot afford to destroy us. She looked around the room at the 1,200 diplomats who had come to watch humanity die. So here is Earth's response to your ultimatum. No. We will not disarm. We will not accept supervision. We will not surrender. She picked up the data crystal. And if you attack us anyway, you will have to explain to every world we've helped why you killed the people who saved them. Diana walked toward the exit. You have 72 hours to reconsider your position. I suggest you use that time wisely. She left the same way she had entered. Calm, unhurried, smiling. Behind her, the Grand Assembly Hall dissolved into chaos. Delegations argued. Alliances fractured. And in the corner, Prill the translator quietly recorded everything. Knowing she was watching history change, the galaxy had declared war on humanity. And humanity had declared something far more powerful: love, weaponized. The war coalition lasted exactly 14 hours. Minister Gala of the Fenari was the first to break. She walked into Chancellor Morvax's private chambers with tears streaming down her blue face and announced that her people would not participate in any attack on Earth. Human doctors saved my daughter, she said. Human volunteers rebuilt our hospitals after the plague. Half of our medical staff were trained by humans. Her voice cracked. I cannot tell my people to kill the species that saved us. I will not. Morvax tried to argue. He reminded her of treaties signed, promises made, the importance of galactic unity. Gala listened politely, then walked out and publicly announced Fenari withdrawal from the coalition. The Morinth followed 3 hours later. Then the Brentis. Then the crystalline Pelori, whose ancient ambassadors simply said, "We have lived for 10,000 years. We have never seen a species win a war through kindness. We would like to see what happens next." By midnight, 5 of the 12 major coalition species had withdrawn. By morning, 3 more announced they were reconsidering their position. Admiral Yenni's Korra watched his grand fleet fall apart and felt something he had not experienced in 40 years of military service. Doubt that he found Diana Webb in the station's observation deck, staring out at the stars. She did not seem surprised to see him. "Admiral," she said pleasantly, "would you like to sit?" Korra remained standing. His reptilian scales shifted color with his emotions, currently a deep, angry red. "You have destroyed everything. 40 years of work. The greatest military alliance in galactic history. Gone in one day." "I destroyed nothing, Admiral. I simply reminded people of what they had forgotten." "You manipulated them." Diana turned to face him. "Did I?" "I showed them facts. I let them draw their own conclusions. Is that manipulation, or is it just honesty delivered at the right moment?" Korra's claws clenched. "My people fear humans. We have feared you since first contact. You are resilient, adaptable, aggressive. You breed quickly. You spread everywhere. You are exactly what a dangerous species looks like." "Yes," Diana agreed quietly. "We are all of those things. That is why you should be afraid." The Admiral's eyes widened. Diana stepped closer to him. "Admiral, humans are the most dangerous species in this galaxy. Not because of our weapons or our ships, but because of our ability to connect. We can befriend anyone. We can adapt to any culture. We can make ourselves useful to any civilization." She smiled gently. "We spent 30 years proving that we are not a threat. We spent 30 years becoming part of galactic society. And now, when you try to remove us, you discover that we have roots everywhere. That is exactly why you must be stopped." "Must we?" Diana shook her head. "Admiral, what would you do if a plant grew in your garden that made every other plant healthier? Would you tear it out because you feared it might grow too large? Or would you let it grow and enjoy the benefits?" Korra was silent for a long moment. His scales slowly shifted from red to a troubled gray. "My own officers have served with humans," he admitted finally. "They speak highly of your species. They say humans work harder, complain less, and never leave a comrade behind." "We don't," Diana agreed. "We can't. It's not in our nature." "Why?" The question came out almost desperate. Why would you help species that treat you as dangerous animals? Diana sat down on a bench and patted the spot next to her. After a moment, Cora sat. He was twice her size, armored in natural scales, armed with claws that could tear through metal. Yet somehow the small human grandmother did not seem intimidated at all. Admiral, do you know what a hostage negotiator does? You talk people out of violence. Yes, but do you know how? Diana looked up at the stars. You listen. You understand. You find the fear beneath the anger and you address it. You make the person feel heard. She paused. You show them that they don't have to be afraid anymore. She turned to face him. Your people fear humans because we are unknown. You have never taken the time to understand us. You have only watched us from a distance and imagined the worst. Her voice softened. But we are not monsters, Admiral. We are just people who want to help. That is all we have ever wanted. Cora stared at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his ancient reptilian eyes. What do you want from me? Nothing you cannot give freely. Diana smiled. I want you to meet with your officers who have worked with humans. Listen to their stories. Then make your own decision about what kind of species we really are. She stood and walked toward the door. Ambassador Webb. Diana turned. If I do this, and I decide humans are still dangerous. Diana's smile did not waver. Then at least you will have made an informed decision. That's all I ask. Understanding before judgment. She left the Admiral sitting alone in the observation deck, staring at stars that suddenly seemed much more complicated than they had that morning. 20 hours remained until the deadline. The coalition was breaking, and Admiral Yenni's Cora, humanity's greatest military threat, was beginning to wonder if he had been wrong about everything. High Chancellor Morvax had one final card to play that he called an emergency meeting with the 4 remaining coalition leaders. The hardliners who still believed humanity must be contained. They gathered in a sealed chamber deep within the station, away from the chaos of the crumbling alliance. Diana Webb was summoned. She arrived alone, still wearing her simple gray suit, still carrying that impossible smile. Prill the translator followed behind her, clutching her recording device with trembling feathers. Morvax stood at the center of the room. His 8 eyes burned with desperation. 40 years of his life had been dedicated to this moment, and he was watching it slip away. Ambassador Webb, he said, his voice cold. You have been clever. You have turned our allies against us with pretty words and emotional manipulation. But you have made one critical error. Diana raised an eyebrow. Have I? Morvax pressed a button on his console. A holographic image appeared, a massive orbital platform bristling with technology that even Diana did not recognize. Project Cleanse, Morvax said. A weapon developed in secret over the past 2 decades. It can alter the atmospheric composition of any planet within range. One activation, and Earth's atmosphere becomes toxic to human life within hours. No invasion required. No fleet needed. Just silence. The room went quiet. Diana's smile flickered. For just a moment, Prill saw something cross the human woman's face. Fear? Anger? It was gone before she could identify it. Then Diana laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not a bitter laugh. A genuine, warm laugh that echoed through the sealed chamber and made Morvax take an involuntary step backward. Chancellor, Diana said, still chuckling, I was wondering when you would play that card. Morvax's fur stood on end. You knew about Project Cleanse? We suspected. Your species is not subtle about secret weapons programs. Too much budget allocation, too many missing scientists. Diana wiped a tear of amusement from her eye. But thank you for confirming it. That makes the next part easier. She reached into her pocket and pulled out another data crystal. This one was different. Older. Worn from years of handling. I've carried this with me for 15 years, Diana said quietly. Waiting for this exact moment. Waiting for you to reveal your ultimate weapon so I could reveal ours. She placed the crystal on the display console. The hologram shifted. Now it showed not weapons or fleets, but something far more complex. A web of connections spreading across the entire galaxy. Medical databases, agricultural patents, educational materials, cultural archives, genetic research. All of it linked, all of it shared, all of it carrying one common thread: human contribution. Protocol Handshake was never just about making ourselves useful, Diana explained softly. It was about making sure that humanity could never be cleanly removed from galactic civilization. She pointed to a cluster of medical data. Human genetic research contributed to treatments for 17 major diseases across 40 species. Our DNA sequences are literally part of the medicine that keeps millions of aliens alive. She pointed to agricultural networks. Human farming techniques feed 300 billion beings across the galaxy. Remove us, and food production drops by 15% overnight. She pointed to cultural archives. Human music, art, and stories have spread to every corner of known space. Our words are in your languages. Our songs are in your children's memories. Our stories are part of your mythology. Diana looked directly at Morvax. You can kill every human on Earth. You can burn our colonies and scatter our survivors. But you cannot remove us from the galaxy. Her voice was calm, steady, absolutely certain. We are in your medicine. We are in your food. We are in your stories. We are in your hearts. She spread her hands. You cannot declare war on US, Chancellor. We are already part of you. Morvax stood frozen. His weapon, his ultimate solution, had become meaningless. Destroying Earth would not end the human problem. It would only create martyrs. The galaxy would remember what humanity had given them, and they would never forgive the species that took it away. This is impossible, one of the other coalition leaders whispered. No species plans this far ahead. Humans do, Diana said simply. We think in generations. We plant trees whose shade we will never sit under. We build for children we will never meet. She smiled. You gave us 30 years of quarantine. You thought you were punishing us. You were actually giving us time to grow roots so deep that you could never pull us out. Prill's feathers were shaking as she recorded everything. She had lived her whole life believing humans were dangerous primitives. Now she understood that humanity's danger was not in their violence, that it was in their patience, their kindness, their terrifying ability to love. The deadline expires in 6 hours, Diana said. You can launch Project Cleanse. You can destroy Earth. But then you will have to live with what you have done. And the galaxy will have to live without what we gave them. She walked toward the door. I think you will find that humanity is worth more alive than dead. But that is your choice, Chancellor. I have made mine. She left the room without looking back. Behind her, the last remnants of the anti-human coalition stared at each other in silence. They had come to destroy humanity. They had discovered that humanity had already saved them. 1 year later, Diana Webb sat in her garden and watched the sunset over the mountains of Colorado. She had retired 3 months after the crisis ended. The doctors said her heart needed rest. Diana suspected her heart was simply tired of carrying the weight of human survival on its shoulders for 30 years. That a small transport ship descended through the evening sky and landed on her lawn. Diana did not get up from her chair. She knew who was coming. Prill emerged from the ship, her feathers now touched with gray. The small bird-like alien had become famous over the past year. Her documentary about humanity's integration into galactic society had been viewed by billions of beings across known space. Ambassador Webb, Prill said, approaching the garden chair. Thank you for agreeing to see me. I'm not an ambassador anymore, Prill. Just Diana. She gestured to a nearby chair. Sit. Watch the sunset with me. Humans believe it brings good luck to share beautiful things. Prill sat. For a long moment, they watched the sky turn orange and pink. I came to show you something, Prill said finally. She pulled out a data pad and handed it to Diana. The screen showed news headlines from across the galaxy. The Galactic Concord had officially dissolved 6 months ago, replaced by a new cooperative council that included human representatives. Chancellor Morvax had been tried for the illegal weapons program, but Diana had testified in his defense, arguing that fear had driven him rather than malice. He had been sentenced to community service, helping rebuild worlds damaged by the very conflicts he had once encouraged. Admiral Yenis Kora now commanded a mixed peacekeeping force of humans and Sorthan working together. The combination had proven surprisingly effective. Human creativity paired with Sorthan discipline had resolved 3 major conflicts in the past year alone. The galaxy is changing, Prill said. Because of you. Diana handed back the data pad. Not because of me. Because of every human who ever helped someone without being asked. Every doctor who stayed late. Every teacher who believed in a struggling student. Every volunteer who pulled a stranger from rubble. She smiled. I just reminded the galaxy of what they already knew. May I ask you something personal? Of course. Prill's feathers ruffled with nervousness. When did you first conceive of protocol handshake? When did you decide to turn humanity's kindness into a weapon? Diana was quiet for a long moment. The sunset painted her face in warm colors. I didn't, she said finally. What do you mean? I didn't conceive of anything, Prill. I didn't create a master plan. Diana turned to look at the small alien. I simply watched what humans naturally do, and I realized that it was already happening. Humans were already spreading across the galaxy, helping wherever they went. I didn't have to create that. I just had to document it. I just had to be ready to show it at the right moment. Prill stared at her. You mean protocol handshake was not a deliberate strategy? The documentation was deliberate. The presentation was deliberate. The timing was deliberate. Diana chuckled. But the kindness? That was just humanity being humanity. We cannot help it. We see someone suffering, and we help. We see someone struggling, and we teach. We see someone alone, and we become their friend. She looked back at the sunset. The galaxy feared us because they thought our violence defined us. They were wrong. Our compassion defines us. Our violence is what we do when compassion fails. But compassion is always our first choice. The door to Diana's house opened, and a young woman stepped out. She had Diana's eyes and Diana's smile. Her granddaughter, Lily, now training to be a diplomat herself. Grandmother? Your tea is ready. Thank you, dear. Diana stood slowly, her old bones protesting. Lily, this is Prill. She's writing a book about how humanity won our place in the galaxy. Lily shook Prill's feathered hand. Nice to meet you. Grandmother talks about you often. Your grandmother changed history. Prill said. Lily laughed. Grandmother says she just smiled at the right time. Diana put her arm around her granddaughter and began walking toward the house. She paused at the door and looked back at Prill. When you write your book, Prill, make sure you include one thing. What is that? Diana's smile appeared one more time. The same smile that had confused the Chancellor. The same smile that had unsettled the Admiral. The same smile that had won humanity's place among the stars. Humanity did not win through power or threats. We won because we made the galaxy love us. And we made them love us by loving them first. She squeezed her granddaughter's shoulder. That is the only weapon that matters. Everything else is just waiting. She disappeared into the house, leaving Prill alone in the garden. The sun finished setting. The stars came out, thousands of points of light representing thousands of worlds where humans now lived and worked and helped. Prill opened her recording device and spoke the final words of her documentary. The humans have a saying, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. For 30 years, they spread honey across the galaxy. And when the galaxy tried to swat them, they discovered that the honey had become unbreakable bonds. Humanity did not conquer the stars. They befriended them. And in the end, that made all the difference. She looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, human doctors were saving lives. Human teachers were opening minds. Human volunteers were rebuilding homes. Humanity was still spreading, and the galaxy was better for it.